It wasn't until 9/11 that I saw what evil could be at scale. I wanted to hunt this type of evil because I thought it was the most evil thing that could exist. Then I saw a girl in a polka dot dress look out a window of a building that's on fire. She's trying to make this decision about if she's going to jump to her death or burn alive, and her last act of conscious thought is to hold her dress down as she jumps to her death. And I wanted to kill everyone that had anything to do with that.
The border.
It's insanity.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing.
The Super Bowl had 60,000 people. You multiply that to 300,000 come across in a month. Military-age men from every single one of our enemies, Chinese, Russian, terrorists.
We have become so fucking incompetent. I don't understand how we could not be defeated. We don't have a fucking border. We are the only free country left in the world. 6 million plus people have crossed. If you were one of these many terrorist organizations, who, by the way, are all joining forces against a common enemy. You know who that common enemy is? We're the fucking common enemy. Good fucking job letting this shit happen.
These are all the things that I would do if I was the adversary. I would finance and support political opponents that want to fight American values, throw all of my money into TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat to make these kids sit there on those phones for as long as I could, which they are. Support the expansion of the federal government. And that's what they're doing. They don't have to do anything. They just sit back, watch us just eat ourselves. Do you remember the plungers behind the line of the 300? So you'd have the guys in the front, the phalanx, or short swords and the spears, and they would move that line forward and then step over the bodies of the people that were fighting that would die against the shields. The next row behind them were long spears. So they were guys that were stabbing through the shoulders and over the shoulders of the forces that were coming. So the wall would come, they'd attack, they'd close the wall, spears would come, and as you'd step over these bodies, the third row would be a plunger, and he would have this metal spike, and he'd just stab these guys. Every night as we moved forward, I would sit there all night long with a thermal imager, and I would splash rounds into every heated body on the battlefield.
Holy shit, dude.
And I did it for 8 hours, a couple hundred rounds a night. And then you drive out and you just see these bodies that have your holes in them to go into the next village that a dude is fighting from a room that he's surrounded with women and children. This is war. Fuck war.
When did you figure out what the significance of being on a SIF team was?
I was pulling outside security in Iraq when a squadron Delta Force leadership, D. Tomaso, comes and takes a knee next to me. He goes, "What are you doing?" I'm wearing cool, fancy desert camo that we had altered, and I look over this dude, he's wearing multicam. "Who the fuck are you?" He's like, "I'm D. Tomaso." And I was like, "I don't know who the fuck that is." He's like, "You didn't answer my question." I'm like, "I'm pulling security." He's like, "Where's your intersecting sector of fire?" I turn on my laser. The guy on the right corner of the building turns on his lasers, and our lasers goes like that. He's like, "Great, have a great night." And just gets up and walks away. And we're at a bomb maker's house for one of Zarqawi's lead henchmen, the VB IEDs that were kind of plaguing Baghdad at the time. And it wasn't until afterwards when I was like, "Who is this dude?" And they tell me who this is, and I start understanding who the units are that are part of this task force. And then it like clicks. I was like, holy shit, this is the A-team. The sharpest tool in the entire arsenal of the American military was being wielded towards one person. That was the first time where I was like, whoa.
Yeah, lucky to be here.
When you look at the founding fathers, when you read that beautiful Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, these were written by Americans that stood on the core values of what it meant to be an American. They wrote a document that will stand the test of time. God, I need Americans to recognize how vulnerable we are. It can be fixed. All it takes is this entrepreneurial American spirit. For us to have a strong America, again, is for the individual to be a strong, competent, capable individual. Not to be fat, not to be this gelatinous mass that can barely read, that just sits there and swipes on their phone, doesn't know how to use a rifle, doesn't know how to purify water, doesn't know how to be an intentional, disciplined parent to their children. We adjust just a couple of degrees and people take back their sovereignty. They are an ungovernable force. The essence of being an American is ungovernable. We are rebellious traitors from our origin. Let's remember what that looked like. They told us to do something, we said no, and we put their tea in the harbor. Then they went to Boston, and that shot that was heard around the world kicked off us killing every single one of them and kicking them off of this continent. Zarqawi was the leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. He was infamous for posing with dead American soldiers, battlefield recovery of their weapons, dragging them through the streets. There were a few different special operations task forces that were tasked with eliminating support. All the while, we're on this kill-capture mission to find him specifically. The crescendo of that led to a single night where we had taken down targets week after week after week. I wasn't on target when he died, but when we get back, we're unloading, everything goes black. Everything gets cut for the whole entire compound. And that's when I was like, his last breaths as he was dying from shrapnel and overpressure was an American commando with his foot on his chest. Going to what we thought was a VBIED target. We do a call out initially. So you set up like an L-shaped ambush on the outside of the house. This was early tactics. When we finally go to assault and clear the building, as we come in through the front door and you find a couple of kids that had been raped and murdered, your brain doesn't process it. Not that you're planning what you're gonna see, but the last thing you plan on seeing is dead kids in a corner.
Did you kill anybody as a sniper?
Yeah, a lot.
Can we talk about the first one?
Yeah. It was a child carrying a 1875 lever action British rifle, and he was moving in resupply points between this Taliban machine gun position. Well, I didn't know how old he was. 500-600 meters, hours of limited visibilities. I see a guy with a gun, I shot him. Very rarely do you get to go and see the people you shoot as a sniper. I come and I see this 11, 12-year-old kid with a rifle. I have this gun hanging on my wall. It's not a war trophy. It's not even functional. Right underneath it is the CENTCOM permission from the JAG. It reminds me of two things. One is every time I hear a politician say, like, why do you need a gun? And the second is to remind me of the cost of war. It's never the way that you want it to be. It's never the way that it is in the movies. It is horrible. I don't want my son to ever have to shoot an 11-year-old kid carrying a gun that doesn't even work. That's war. Early 2006. It's madness. The whole entire city. Zarqawi is peak power right now. Al-Qaeda is destroying and killing as many Americans that are on their soil as they can, and to destabilize the new Iraqi government that we were trying to put into place. We were the hammer every night. Americans are hanging from bridges after they've been burnt alive and dragged through the street. That's this era of war. This is Blackwater dudes being tortured, football players being kidnapped, anybody that was working for the American government. Zarqawi's having his henchmen drill their hands to the wall, they'd cut off their eyelids, and then they'd rape their family in front of them before they killed them. And you'd walk in, you'd find this raped and murdered family with this dude's hands drilled to the wall. Like, this is fucking peak war.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
You walked in on that.
We found every kind of imaginable horror that terrorists do to civilians. We found.
Did you kill anybody as a sniper?
Yeah, a lot.
Can we talk about the first one?
Yeah. It was a child carrying a 1875 lever action British rifle. I didn't know how old he was. 500-600 meters, hours of limited visibilities. I see a guy with a gun, I shot him. I come and I see this 11, 12-year-old kid with a rifle. I have this gun hanging on my wall. It's not a war trophy. It's not even functional. Right underneath it is the CENTCOM permission from the JAG. It reminds me of two things. One is every time I hear a politician say, like, why do you need a gun? And the second is to remind me of the cost of war. It's never the way that you want it to be. It's never the way that it is in the movies. It is horrible. I don't want my son to ever have to shoot an 11-year-old kid carrying a gun that doesn't even work. That's war. My dad and his team, this Narcotics task force, steal an entire plane of cocaine from Pablo Escobar. Peak war on drugs. The cartels had influence over governments. They bring it to the United States. These are pallets of cocaine. I remember walking into San Luis Obispo, my mom, my brother, sister, and I grabbed some pies. We walk into this storage area, and there's 2 pallets of cocaine, and my dad and all of his colleagues they're sitting there with MP5s suppressed. There's a Porsche and a Lamborghini, and I just hand off these pies. And then we go. They took that cocaine and they gave it to regional distributors. Those distributors then gave it to like street dealers, and then in 1 week they went and arrested all of the distributors and all of the dealers. Hundreds of these people on the whole entire West Coast. They didn't lose a single gram of cocaine.
Wow.
They're good.